I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update from Monday, September the 23rd, 2013. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed over the weekend in separate incidents in the West Bank. 20-year-old Staff Sergeant Gabriel Kobi was killed yesterday by a Palestinian sniper near the Jewish quarter in Hebron. Shots were fired at Kobi and his Givati unit, who were positioned along the road near the Tomb of the Patriarchs at an IDF checkpoint. 20-year-old Sergeant Tomer Chazan was killed late Friday night by a Palestinian man who was a former co-worker and friend. 42-year-old Nidal Amar confessed to killing Chazan after convincing the soldier to accompany him to his West Bank hometown of Kalkilia. The two had worked together at a restaurant in Bat Yam. After arriving there, Amar murdered Chazan and hid his body in a well. He later told police he was planning on exchanging the Israeli soldier's body for the release of his brother Noor al-Din Amar, a Fatah operative imprisoned since 2003 for his involvement in several terror attacks. Chazan was laid to rest yesterday, Kobi was laid to rest today, and the IDF was continuing its search for his killer. The White House released a statement today in response to the violence, condemning the killings of the 2 Israeli soldiers, saying such violence and terror are unacceptable and undermine efforts to establish the positive atmosphere the parties need to progress in peace negotiations. Further saying, we call on all parties to join in condemning these attacks. The European Union responded to the killings as well. EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton said the EU regrets the loss of life, urges for maximum restraint, and reiterates its call to all parties to refrain from actions that could undermine the negotiation process and the prospects of peace. Palestinian authorities' Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki said today that the killings of the IDF soldiers should not influence peace negotiations, but there was no condemnation of the killings from the PA. An IDF spokesman, Brigadier General Yoav Mordechai, told Army Radio this morning that the IDF has said it does not believe the attacks show any change in the generally peaceful situation in the West Bank, which has been characterized by security cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority in recent years. He said, our assessment remains these are local events. We don't see a change in direction, but we will remain at high alert and won't relax our efforts to protect the Israeli people. And in the wake of the killing of Gabriel Kobi in Hebron, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the immediate resettlement of Beit HaMachpelah, a building near the Tomb of the Patriarchs close to the location where the IDF soldier was shot. The building was previously boarded up by order of the Defense Ministry in Israel. Netanyahu said those who try to uproot us from Hebron, the city of our forefathers, will only achieve the opposite. He added, we will continue to fight terrorism with one hand and strengthen settlements with the other. The New York Times reported yesterday, citing an Israeli official, that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will use his upcoming speech at the United Nations General Assembly next week to compare Iran's current diplomatic efforts on its nuclear program to North Korea's diplomatic maneuvering prior to its testing of an atomic bomb. The Israeli official quoted by the Times was, according to the report, involved in drafting Netanyahu's speech, and said that the Prime Minister plans to warn the UN that a nuclear deal with the Iranian government could be a trap similar to one set by North Korea 8 years ago. The reported speech is also said to reiterate what the Prime Minister said last week regarding Iranian President Hassan Rouhani's pledge that Iran would never develop a nuclear weapon, something that Netanyahu said amounted to, quote, fraudulent words that should fool no one. According to the official cited in the Times report, Netanyahu will demand at the UN that Iran cease all enrichment of its uranium and agree to the removal of all enriched uranium from its territory, also to dismantle its nuclear facility at Qom and its newest generation of centrifuges at another facility in Natanz, also stopping to build the heavy water reactor in Arak. Reuters reports that Somali Islamist group Al-Shabaab claimed today that Israeli and Kenyan forces had tried unsuccessfully to enter the Nairobi shopping mall 3 days after a raid by Somalia's Al-Shabaab killed at least 62 people there. The Israeli Foreign Ministry, however, has not confirmed or denied that any Israeli agents were present for the rescue operation, and an Israeli source told French news agency AFP that while Israeli advisors are at the scene helping with the negotiating strategy, quote, no Israelis are involved in any imminent storming operation. The source said that only a handful of Israelis, purely in an advisory role, were on scene at the shopping center, which has several Israeli-owned outlets. According to the Foreign Ministry, several Israelis were in the mall at the time of the attack on Saturday. One was reportedly lightly injured and 3 others escaped unharmed. The ministry also said that in this case, Israelis had not been specifically targeted. The siege appeared to be nearing its end today as Kenya's Interior Ministry said the later evacuation of hostages went very, very well, and that Kenyan officials are, quote, very certain that there are few, if any, hostages left in the building. Israel's outgoing ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren, gave an interview to the Jerusalem Post looking back at his term and at the main issues that he dealt with during his time as envoy. When asked, Oren said the highlight of his tenure was President Barack Obama's trip to Israel and specifically his speech before 2,500 Israeli students at Jerusalem's Convention Center, where he said he was moved by the outpouring of love. He also spoke about the perceived difficult or dysfunctional relationship between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Obama. Oren said, I don't think the relationship was ever dysfunctional. I want to say something without reservation. I know what a crisis looks like in Israel-U.S. relations, and we never experienced a single crisis here. When asked about the low point in his career, he said it was during the crisis last winter with Gaza, when 5 million Israelis were under rocket fire. He also mentioned the flotilla incident of May of 2010 as a tough period. Well, a motion reaffirming Ontario's commitment to religious freedom passed unanimously this week. Jewish legislator Monty Quinter introduced the motion in response to a proposal that would ban religious symbols in the workplace. As we reported to you last week, the Jewish community in Quebec had come out against the government's proposed values charter, which would ban any religious headgear and other, quote, conspicuous religious symbols for public sector employees. The motion introduced by Quinter states that the province, quote, should oppose any legislation that would restrict or prohibit people's freedom of expression and religion in public places, and affirms that Ontario greatly values our diverse population and the social, cultural, and economic contributions they make to help our society thrive. The Jewish Agency is on the hunt for the world's best sukkah. The agency launched a Sukkathon contest over the Festival of the Tabernacles, calling in for pictures and tweets of Sukkot around the globe. It said in the spirit of inviting guests into one's sukkah, the Jewish Agency for Israel would like you to open your sukkah to other Jews from communities around the world. Submissions were sent in through this evening, and the owner of the most beautiful and innovative sukkah is due to be announced on Hoshana Rabbah this Wednesday. The panel of judges consists of a team of international artists, including South African architect Pam Davidson, British art critic of the Jewish Chronicle Julia Wiener, and Brazilian fine artist Bettina Schneid. Some of the first applicants to enter the competition were young children from the Jewish Agency's Ye'elim Immigrant Absorption Center in Beersheba, who submitted a photo of themselves in the sukkah they helped to build and decorate in the absorption center. The children are between the ages of 4 and 6 and hail from the Ukraine, Yemen, Peru, South Africa, and Argentina.
Where is our heart? Where is our conscience? Where is our morality to deny that?
And finally, on tonight's L'Chaim, Mark Golub is joined by Nobel Peace Prize winner, renowned author and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel. That's tonight at 9 o'clock here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Monday, September the 23rd, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.